Welcome into Sports Talk at the stadium from Clemson's Death Valley, where this afternoon South Carolina knocked off Clemson 17-14 in the 121st edition of the Palmetto Bowl. Our report is brought to you by the South Carolina Beef Council. This one will go down as an all-time classic. South Carolina came in as a 3-point underdog. The Gamecocks leave Death Valley as 3-point winners, and Shane Beamer goes to 2-0 as a head coach of the Gamecocks here in Death Valley. Clemson led most of the way. The game really came down to the last few minutes. The Gamecocks were able to score a touchdown. Lenore Sellers running in, breaking a number of tackles. He ran up and down and through the Clemson defense all day long, and he gets into the end zone to give the Gamecocks their first lead of the game at 17-14. But lickety-split, here comes Clemson down the field with Cade Klubnik hitting some passes and running the football. They get it down deep inside South Carolina territory, and Klubnik on a roll to the right throws an ill-advised pass. It was a tip ball, and South Carolina's Demetrius Knight picks it up as an interception right before it hits the ground. He dives forward, comes away with the INT with about 12 seconds to go. All that was left was a kneel down for Sellers, and that was about the only time the Clemson defense stopped him in the running game, was when he kneeled down. Otherwise, he ran around and through Clemson defenders all day. I would love to have $1 for every tackle he broke today. He was simply sensational. You can call him Superman. Teammates called him Magic after the game. He was incredible running the football, especially the way Clemson harassed him and got hands all over him, and they just could not bring him down. His performance outshined that of Klubnik, who up until that last interception had a nice day himself. He ran in for a couple of touchdowns, and he hit many big balls in the passing game, several to Antonio Williams, as the Tigers receivers had a good day for about the first 2.5 quarters or so against that South Carolina man coverage. And then the Gamecocks kind of tightened things up and slowed the Tigers down in that category to give themselves a chance to get back in the ball game and set up that exciting finish. Both teams are now 9-3, and some numbers on the game. 431 yards for the Gamecocks to 419 for the Tigers. 267 on the ground for South Carolina. In case you keep up with this stuff, that's the most for the Gamecocks this century against the Tigers. The Tigers rushed for 139 and passed for 280. Gamecocks passed for 164. USC guilty of 3 turnovers, but Clemson did not turn any of those turnovers into points. So the Gamecock defense came up big in those situations when they had to run back out there and clean up for the offense. Clemson turned it over twice. They had the interception at the end. There was also a critical turnover for Clemson when the Tigers looked like they might have something going. And there was a backwards pass to Phil Maffa that he could not catch and did not corral. It was reviewed and ruled as a free ball, and South Carolina recovered it, and that stopped that Clemson opportunity. The Gamecocks did not score off the Clemson turnovers either. Interesting, the Gamecocks only had 1 sack of Klubnik, while the Tigers got to Sellers 3 times. Clemson put a lot of pressure on Sellers. The Gamecocks pass pro, especially in the first half, was not good, but many times Sellers was able to break away from that pressure and turn it into something good for South Carolina. He finished with 166 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. He averaged 10.4 yards per rush. He also was 13 of 21 through the air, 164 yards, had the 1 interception. Klubnik was 24 of 36 for 280 and 1 pick. He also rushed for 62 yards. So he had a very good day, but folks are going to remember that interception once again because Clemson was deep in Gamecock territory with time running out. At the very least, the Tigers could have kicked a field goal and forced overtime, but they never got the chance. Phil Moffitt finished with 66 yards. Antonio Williams had 8 catches for 99. I mentioned big plays for Sellers, and the Gamecock running game produced 9 big plays, including runs of 38, 27, 27, 25, 21, and 20 yards. I mean, they really had it going on the ground. This Clemson defense has got to figure out what's going on against the run because they gave up 288 to Citadel last week. Clemson had 5 big plays in the passing game, including completions of 40 and 36 yards. So this was, of course, the state championship. It goes to South Carolina. It was also a game that carried some national implications. With this loss, Clemson is eliminated, I would think, from at-large consideration for the college football playoff. They still have a chance if they play in the ACC championship game. And as we're doing this report, Miami and Syracuse were playing. It was tied at 21, and Clemson needs Syracuse to win that game to get into the ACC championship game. As for the Gamecocks, Shane Beamer made no bones about it after the game. His team is a playoff game. He believes nobody's playing better at this time of the season. If you're looking at the best teams in the country who are playing their best at the end of the season, he says his team is one of them. And you know what? He probably makes a very strong argument when you look at the fact that the Gamecocks beat a ranked team on the road here at Clemson. They beat a ranked team early in the year on the road at Kentucky. They went out and they won at Oklahoma. They played Alabama on the road to a 2-point game. They have some very solid credentials, a very strong resume, especially over the last 6 weeks that they can sell to that committee. The committee, no doubt, will take a hard look at South Carolina when it gets down to those 3 lost teams under consideration, if it gets down that far. But you know what? South Carolina would love to make the playoffs, but right now they just want to celebrate this win over Clemson, their second straight win up here in Death Valley. In fact, Clemson fans have not celebrated a win over the Gamecocks in Death Valley since 2018. They're going to have to wait 2 more years to get another shot. South Carolina wins it here today, 17-14. More football is ahead for both of these teams. The question is just how much for each. That'll do it for our coverage here at Death Valley, brought to you by the South Carolina Beef Council. Be sure to check out our other coverage on our website, sportstalksc.com. If you're not following our new Twitter, make sure you do that at Sports Talk Posts with an S, at Sports Talk Posts. Monday nights, Chris Bergen will join me, and we'll take your phone calls, hear what you have to say about this dynamic win this afternoon for South Carolina at Clemson. Thanks for joining us here, Sports Talk at the Stadium from Death Valley at Clemson.